Hey guys, it's been a while, so I thought I would do a video for you about some of the things I've been noticing in client sessions. A reoccurring thing that seems to be happening a lot is that people, I've noticed, tend to, they're waiting for the world to change in order for them to feel good or okay. And the news from me is that it works in exactly the opposite way. I think most people think that the world is happening to them and the world needs to be a certain way in order for them to feel okay. I've probably mentioned this before, but it sort of becomes more and more apparent that, you know, the expression, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. Well, I want to just modify that slightly and just say if you are thinking negatively in the same way and you're doing that repeatedly, you're going to keep getting the same results. And according to Einstein, I think, you cannot solve the problem from the same kind of mindset or level of consciousness that caused the problem in the first place. In fact, the very fact that you're focusing on the problem means you're going to experience more of the problem. But I'll give you an example. So somebody thinks that they need a particular job or the right relationship or something like that in order for them to, something's missing, I need to feel this, I need to have that. Again, if you're looking for that, if you're not feeling good now and you're kind of having these problems, it doesn't matter what job you get, it doesn't matter what relationship you get into, you're going to still feel the same way because you're taking the problem into that relationship. So I want you to understand that you are creating your internal experience in relation to what's going on. Not that this out here is causing you to feel a certain way, because you always have a choice. And my advice to you is, if you change your thinking and you actually manage your state, if you are able to make a decision that you want to feel good now from moment to moment, because it will always be now, and it's that thing, I'll feel good when, it never comes because it doesn't exist, it's not real. So you need to get good at making yourself feeling good now. And also, something great happens when you feel good, life gets easier. And then you bring that feeling to what you're doing instead of looking for those things to make you feel like that. Let me give you an example. Because we are electromagnetic beings, right? We are basically energy. It's proven now that, you know, what we focus on, what we look at, we are changing matter, we are changing our relationships, we are affecting people, we are affecting what comes to us and what doesn't come to us. So if you're in a negative loop in your mind and you're kind of stuck in this negative place and you're just focusing on what you don't want, you're just going to keep getting more of that. And I'll give an experience, a sort of example of that from my own life actually, fairly recently, because I had to give myself a bit of a talking to, because I understand this stuff and I sort of forgot for a moment. So basically, I had a load of clients leaving at the same time, they're all getting better, and I kind of was wondering where the money was going to come from, and I kind of got into a bit of a loop and I was thinking, hang on a minute, what are you doing? Like, I even started to try desperately forcing things to happen and doing all these kind of things, but actually, again, when you're in that negative loop and you're in that negative energy and you're trying to force things, you probably would have experienced it, that actually things either get worse or they get stuck, nothing's happening, nothing's shifting. So basically, I went inside, I kind of changed my mindset, I changed the way I felt, I got in touch with what it would be like if everything was how I wanted it to be. I imagined that outcome, just like you wouldn't get an Olympic runner to imagine losing the race. I started rehearsing how I wanted things to be, and instead of taking lots of actions and trying to force stuff, I got the inside right first. And because I did that, the very next day, everything exploded. I got about 4 new clients. I suddenly had people that owed me money started to pay up. A client paid me extra because we went over time. And literally within about a week or two, I've doubled my clients. I'm probably the busiest I've ever been. And it's not because I did anything external. And there'll be some people that are saying, well, that's just a coincidence. But really think about it. Like, the timing, how many different things all happened at once. Like, I'm now bombarded with inquiries all of a sudden. And it's not like I got an extra client and that paid the bills. We're talking like, I've probably got about 5 or 6 new clients, and maybe even more than that now, actually, and some in the pipeline. So anyway, change your mindset. Also, of course, there are the neurological reasons why you want to do that. If you are stressed and in that negative part of your brain, you're going to be in the emotional center of your brain, and you're going to be thinking worst case scenarios. You're going to be being obsessional and kind of seeing through a filter of everything's crap. So you're just going to keep that going, and you're going to filter out any opportunities, and you're just going to be continuing in that mental state. So I would just say that. Something else I've noticed is, and I used to be guilty for this, so I just want to sort of not point the finger, but just kind of highlight the fact that there are lots of people that are reading all of the right books. They're kind of saying the right things, but they're not actually doing anything. I used to be a collector of books. I used to read all these different self-help. I still do. I love reading personal development books. I'm a very spiritual person. I love reading all that stuff. But what I wasn't doing before was any action. I was just reading it and going, that's really interesting, that's great. And then I'd shelf that and I would move on to the next one. I think a lot of people do that. We kind of just collect books and read and read and read, but we're not actually doing. And there's a Chinese proverb that says, to know and not to do is not to know. And that makes perfect sense. So, I mean, I have one client in particular that often says to me, yeah, I know all that. I said, yeah, but are you doing it? Like, it's one thing to know stuff on an intellectual level, and there's another thing to actually experience it. The experience of actually, the experiential, impact of actually doing something is so much more important than just knowing something intellectually. So I encourage you to actively do the things that you read about, try some stuff out, take action, because there is no substitute. Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is I think a lot of people hold on to, remember what I said about feeling good, because when you feel good, things flow. Like, you've got to feel good first, because it's not enough. I've got a lot of other people that say they're saying all the right things again, they're thinking the right things, but they're not feeling, there's a disconnect between what they're thinking and feeling. So if you're saying positive affirmations and you're wanting all the right things and saying, I am abundant, I'm this, I'm that, but you're not actually getting anything, it's because you probably feel like crap on the inside, and the feelings are the fuel, if you like. It's one thing to say what you want and set the intention, but if there's no fuel there, you're not going to get anywhere. So just cultivate your feelings, like do what you need to do, like maybe meditate, maybe watch movies that make you feel good, listen to music that empowers you, set some anchors, associating those positive memories to a particular movement or trigger that you have on yourself. You know how to make yourself feel good, so make a decision to feel like that, and then your world will change based on what you've done in the opposite direction. Anyway, the point being then is that a lot of people are not able to feel good because they're hanging on to negativity. They're not forgiving people. They are remembering and going over and rehearsing like bad feelings and experiences that have happened to them, and they're not moving on with that. And there was a really interesting metaphor for this that I heard fairly recently from a guy called Wayne Dyer, very, very inspirational speaker. And basically he made the point of, it's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the venom that then flows through your blood, right? So if you put that into the context of your human experience, like when someone does something to you or there's a situation, that's the bite, right? It's not pleasant. And I'm not saying, I'm encouraging you to forgive people, but it's not to say that what they did was okay. It's not to say that you're going to let them do it again or walk all over you. What it's saying is that the venom in this case, because the situation's gone, the bite's finished, right? But the venom in this case is the chemicals that we're creating internally when we keep mulling it over and when we keep dwelling on it. And some people will for years keep replaying it and reminding themselves how angry and stressed and and how much resentment they have for another human being. But what I'm here to tell you is that is not affecting the other person, it's affecting you. That is poison, that is venom that's running through your system. And it is a fact that if you cultivate feelings like that and emotions like that and create chemicals like that, that you are going to have serious medical problems potentially long term. You know, they've realized now that stress activates those kind of hereditary genes that create certain illnesses that are in the family. Whereas if you hadn't been so stressed out, they would have remained dormant. Like the reason that 57% of absences from work now are stress related, when you think about what that means, most people are really stressed out most of the time. So for your own benefit, I would say you need to let it go. You need to make peace with it. You know, you need to forgive that. Even if you're not saying it directly to the person, I encourage you to do that. But if you can't, then at least make peace with it within your own body, because it will benefit you by letting that go, because you are carrying that around with every other negative thing on your back, and it's no wonder that you're so stressed and run down all the time. So those were some, I suppose, learnings, understandings, things that occurred to me. I hope that's been helpful. Anyone needs some support, please get in touch, and have a wonderful evening. Thanks a lot.